crossroads. We defined crossroads as points we reach in life, decision points we reach in life, where two very powerful things come together. One, the stakes are very high, and then two, the options are not immediately very clear. So the stakes are very high, the options are not immediately very clear. We did realize that such crossroads then become places of disruption because they surface very powerful emotions. And secondly, they become positions of discovery to really truly discover certain fundamental and core things about who you are, what quest of life you are on, what's truly driving you, and honestly. And then thirdly is they become periods of decision, and it can be frightening because the stakes are being high, and then secondly, the options not being very clear. Making decisions at that point can feel very paralyzing, to say the least. When these three things converge together, the opportunity for disruption, the chance for decision, and the moment for discovery come together, what they do is they create an immense tension between faith and feelings, and they pull the two in opposite directions. And it is at that moment that otherwise smart people begin doing very unsmart things. We, however, realize that we arrive at crossroads looking like our daddy or mommy and like our DNA, but we will leave the crossroads looking like our decisions. And so we need to become great at making them. God in his mercy doesn't abandon us to ourselves. He comes to the crossroads and offers us a couple of things, because primarily he's not just interested in saving the human being, he's also interested in saving humanity. By so saying, I mean bringing us to live fully to what it means to be truly human, and navigating the decisions is really part of that process. Today we continue with our journey, and the story we did read yesterday was based in the book of Mark 14, and we realized a number of people arrived at a crossroad at the same time. There were disciples, there was Jesus, there were the priests and the people whom they sent to arrest. They all arrived at a crossroad, a place of high stakes and not very many clear options, all at the same time. But by the end of the story, only one person in that entire story had navigated the crossroads properly, and that person is Jesus. And we want to see, how is it that Jesus ended up making the right decision at the crossroad? What did he do different from all the rest? Why is it that by the time the night is over, the chief priest has torn his garment, the disciples have forsaken Jesus, Peter has already denied him with cursing and swearing, John Mark has run away naked, Judas has earned the unhappy label of being the betrayer, but only Jesus in that entire crowd, though it's not apparent in the immediate because he's the prisoner and he's being beaten and mistreated, is actually the only individual who has made the right decision. What did he do different that the others didn't? And how can we learn from there? So that's a question I'm not able to answer in one session like today. And so we'll be chipping away at it for the remainder part of this week to see the various things Jesus did. But let's see what he generally did, okay? And then I want us to zoom in. So just for flavor's sake, we're going to read the same story, the experience in the Garden of Gethsemane. It's recorded in all the Gospels. Today we want to read the perspective from Matthew. Matthew, the former tax collector, writes about the same incidents and he does record it in Matthew 26. So the record of the experience of Jesus' life and the interactions as captured by one of the disciples who lived through those very moments, his name is Matthew. And Matthew is the first book in the division of the Bible we've come to call the New Testament. And we're reading chapter 26. And, pardon me, Matthew 26, we will begin from verse 36, 26 from verse 36. This is what Matthew tells us about that incident. He says, then came Jesus with them here being his disciples, to a place that is called Gethsemane, and said unto his disciples, sit you here while I go and pray over there. King James uses the big words like yonder. And he took with him Peter and the two sons of Zebedee, that's James and John, and he began to be sorrowful and very heavy. Again, I'm very impressed with Jesus giving room for certain mental health manifestations to be normalized. He's the boss, he's the rabbi, and it's easy for him to try and bottle it in, and look all proper. But he allows himself to be vulnerable and even requests for help in his mental health situation. So, elder, daddy, uncle, I'm speaking directly to males. And part of the reason I'm doing this is more women, the statistics show more women attempt suicide than men, but more men are successful at suicide than women. And the reason is because women will tend to use less lethal means, or means which, if discovered, can be easily reversed. But most men will use lethal means. They'll use a firearm or something which the rate of success is higher. And part of the reason for this is 15% of men, at least in United States, indicated they don't have a friend. Like zero, they have zero friends, 15%. That means if you're counting up to 10, between 1 to 2 people do not have zero friends. And of course, cognizant that the immediate audience speaking to in this respective call is from an African extraction, where men are disincentivized from either A, seeking help for their mental struggles, or B, even expressing or admitting they exist. And the end result is they become bleeding individuals who then bleed on other individuals. They bleed on their children, they bleed on their spouses, they bleed on their business, they bleed on their friends, and everything they touch is bleeding. And I'm not trying to show you, men, hey, you're bad, you're weak and stuff. I'm just saying, like, hey, you know what? The man, Jesus himself, Matthew 26:37 was okay with expressing this is quite some mental health stuff that he was willing to demonstrate. But that's not the sermon. I just took that commercial to promote that. So yeah, please don't sit there and struggle. Reach out. I'm a certified mental health coach. You can reach out to me. Reach out to somebody around you who may need to help you. You don't need to struggle with your mental health concerns by yourself. But back to our message. Verse 38. Then said he unto them, my soul is exceeding sorrowful, even unto death. Stay you here and watch with me. He's not ashamed to seek for help. And he went a little farther and fell to his face and prayed, saying, O my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will. And he comes unto the disciples and finds them asleep, and said unto Peter, what? Could you not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray that you enter not into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. He went again away the second time and prayed, saying, "Oh, my Father, if this cup may not pass away from me except I drink it, your will be done." And he came and found them asleep again, for their eyes were heavy. And he left them and went away again and prayed the third time, saying the same words. Which words? "Father, if this cup cannot pass away, but I drink it, your will, not mine." Then comes he to the disciples and said unto them, "Sleep on now and take your rest. Behold, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us be going. Behold, he is at hand, he who should betray me, he who does betray me, sorry." And while he yet was speaking, behold, Judas, one of the 12, came, and with him a great multitude with swords and sticks from the chief priests and elders of the people. Now, he that betrayed him gave them a sign, saying, "Whoever I will kiss, the same it is, hold him very fast." And immediately he came to Jesus and said, "Hail, Master," and kissed him. And notice, and Jesus said unto him, "Friend, why are you come?" Then came they and laid hands on Jesus and took him. Mark and Luke say, Jesus, the question he asked Judas was, "Do you betray me with a kiss?" And behold, one of them, which was with Jesus, stretched out his hand and drew his sword and struck a servant of the high priest and smote off he cut off the ear. Then said Jesus unto him, "Put up again your sword into its place, for all they that take the sword shall perish by the sword. Think you not that I cannot now pray to my Father, and he shall readily give to me more than 12 legions of angels? But now, when shall the scriptures be fulfilled that this must be?" In that same hour said Jesus to the multitude, "Are you come out as against a thief with swords and sticks for to take me? I sat daily with you, teaching you in the temple, and you laid not your hands on me. But all this is done, that the scriptures of the prophets might be fulfilled." Then all the disciples forsook him and fled. Powerful. You notice a consistent thing happens here. Jesus is at his crossroad, and I've already promoted the mental health piece. One of the things you see him consistently doing is his questioning. He does a lot of questions. You see him going to the Father in prayer and asking him, "Is it possible for this cup to go away?" Luke will say an angel was sent to strengthen him in response to that prayer. And then he goes, and 3 times he goes back and asks the disciples questions. "Hey, Peter, you mean you couldn't stay with me 1 hour? Hey, you guys, wake up. Why are you sleeping?" He asks questions. He goes, asks question, comes back to the Father and asks him the question. He repeats the same questions to the Father. "Is it possible for this cup to go away?" When Judas is approaching him, Jesus does the same thing. He asks him a question like, "Hey, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss? Why you come here, friend?" Even at that point, he's still calling Judas a friend. When the multitude is tying him up, he asks them, "Why you come to me with swords and sticks like you're coming for a thief, yet every day I was with you?" So Jesus is really navigating a high stakes situation. He's in a crossroad, but you realize one of the tools that helps him at least emerge on the other side as the only individual through this entire crossroads situation who's made the right thing is questions. He uses a lot of questions, and he questions every player, every single player. He questions the disciples, he questions the Father, he questions Judas, he questions the team that is arresting him. And you notice he doesn't just question and walk away. He engages. He genuinely does engage. Some of the questions he asks are so powerful that they don't need an answer. They arrest the people wherever they are, but he does engage the people with it. This is not the key part of my message. I'm going somewhere with this. But let me encourage us on two things here. Jesus is cognizant of his own crossroad, but he's also cognizant of the crossroads of the people around him. So much so he even tells the disciples, pray. The hour that you guys are going into is tempting. Pray. But you do notice he is, in all his questioning, he's not speaking from up here to people down there. No, he is speaking to disciples he has already confided to and told them, I'm not in a good space. My spirit is exceedingly sorrowful. I need you guys to come and hang out with me. So he is not speaking like he's here and they're down here. He's speaking like somebody who's come alongside them. And he's, he even to Judas, he doesn't call him traitor. He calls him friend. He comes alongside. So in his questioning to the various players and actors navigating this challenging crossroad, Jesus uses questions as his way to tell them, hey, I have come alongside you. Dad, I know you're a modernist. I know you believe in science, and you've somehow been able to reconcile your science with faith, and you've grown in a certain way of belief. But you've raised your son, your daughter in this country, and the worldview they have been exposed to is postmodernity and metamodernity that doesn't, A, believe the same things you believe or believe them the same way, and B, doesn't aspire to the same things you do. And now your child is in their teenage or their young adulthood, and they're grappling with very sincere questions about faith. They're being exposed to a world out here that is asking, how do we believe in a Christianity that was hand in hand with colonization? How do we believe in a Christianity which, when it went to other lands, discredited other people's culture and imposed a Western culture upon them? That's a reality they're being shown. The children are being exposed to questions that are difficult, like how do we reconcile faith with things like the Crusades and the advocacy for slavery? And so I know your son and your daughter are cold towards Christianity, and it's worried you, it's concerned you as a parent because you've tested faith and you know it's a real thing, you know it's powerful. And in your well-meaning behavior, what you've decided to do is that this crossroad, when now your child is deciding where to turn to in terms of their faith, you've come in very heavily. You've almost even threatened that if they don't believe or behave as you do, you're not going to support them. You're not going to, you raise them a certain way they need to believe. Might it be that you need to experience what Jesus did here, appreciating that many individuals here are going through crossroads, and Jesus came from heaven. Like he knows way more than the individuals with him, but he comes and sits alongside them, not above them and not beneath them. And one of the effective tools he uses to allow him to sit alongside individuals who are grappling with real transitions is questions. Because if questions are properly used, they can easily communicate and can give us the opportunity to come alongside and build redemptive relationships with people who don't believe the way we do, who don't behave the way we do. But if we, by beginning to build those important relationships, we can begin doing the second thing, what Jesus was using questions for, which was to build bridges. So he used questions, number one, to communicate that I have come alongside you. I'm not angry at you. I'm not upset at you. I empathize. I understand that you're going through your transition moment, your crossroad moment, and I'm here for you. And then the second reason Jesus uses questions is through the questions, he's able to come to understand each of their anxieties. And then he uses questions to build bridges from their anxiety to the hope that is in Christ. Jesus knows Judas has 30 pieces of silver and he's looking to close in on a deal. But really what is driving Judas is ambition. That's really what is at the heart of Judas. And so when Jesus is asking him, friend, Jesus is telling him, hey, I'm alongside you. I can see through what you're about to do, but I'm still trying to build a bridge from your anxiety to a better place. I have within me the resource to fulfill meaningfully, completely, and accurately what it is you're looking for. When he's telling the disciples, why are you asleep? Why you guys, you couldn't be with me. There's an hour of trial coming. So Jesus is telling them, I have brought you here so that you might use prayer to get the tools you need for the hour ahead of you. So Jesus is using questions to build connective bridges between the people's anxieties and God's solutions. Let me speak to the church as a whole. You by now have realized that when we put up our evangelistic meetings, the old way of doing it for 3 weeks and, the talking points of the past, no one is really coming. The people who are coming are ourselves, and even then intermittently. And many of us have then taken the posture of attacking the culture and saying people don't want God and stuff. No, might it be that we are answering questions no one is asking? Let that just sink in for a minute. The reason Jesus is able to ask very effective questions in Gethsemane is because he didn't send people into Gethsemane. He is sitting with them in Gethsemane. And so he's able to see the struggles of the disciples at that very minute, and effectively using questions, he's able to begin to have discussions with them that they really are having. He's addressing their immediate anxieties. So, church, might it be that the reason our 3-week approach is not working is not because the world has become more secular, and don't be fooled, it has become, but might it be that we are messaging and we are articulating needs that are so 1950 in 2023? Could it be that we are busy trying to prove that the Sabbath is Saturday to people who would care less, to people whose immediate questions they're asking is, where is my church when, or where is the church in this whole social justice movement? Where is a church in all these climate things that are affecting me now? Where's a church when corruption is threatening my livelihood and the livelihood to come? Why is this church so interested in selling to me heaven while it is not equipping me to be able to live now? Might it be that we have not learned to sit with people in their Gethsemanes, in their crossroads? Might it be that all we do is we are parachuting in during evangelistic campaigns and going door to door and knocking, but we've not been able to learn to live within the community so that we are able to articulate the needs of the community in a way that the community hears and they say, these guys are answering or addressing the questions and the anxieties that are within my heart. And by that, we are building bridges from their anxieties to the hope that is in Christ. So at the heart of Jesus' success in navigating his crossroad was questions. That's really the thing he does almost from when he steps into Gethsemane, a free man, and to the point he's exiting Gethsemane, a bound man, yet the only person who's navigated his crossroad effectively. The thing Jesus is consistently doing to God, to fellow men, to himself, is questions. And questions are powerful because they help communicate presence. They help communicate, I'm here with you. They help communicate, I'm sitting side by side with you. And questions are powerful because they help tapping into the true anxieties that people are trying to navigate, and then from there build bridges to effective solutions. Might we need as parents, might we need as students, might we need as workers, as employees, and just as individuals get better at asking questions and using questions to genuinely communicate that, hey, I'm here. Might it be that we are very poor at listening, and therefore our crossroads, and even those who we are trying to support others through crossroads, are made them more harder because we're just not good or comfortable at asking questions. And questions, as we're about to begin unpacking, are very nervous. Questions are very hard. And so I want to, with that basis, address the first question. And you do notice Jesus addresses different questions to different people. The question he asks Peter is very different from the question he asks Judas, and is very different from the question he asks the mob, and is very different from the question he asks God. And since questions are important, they lie at the heart, it's imperative that we then take each question, we take each of the questions apart and begin asking, how can I apply each of the questions? So today I want to deal with one question, then tomorrow another question, like that until we are done. So this we're doing one question per day. Today's was probably the longest because I needed to lay out this. And as I go to today's question, let me begin asking you just those questions like, hey, how good are you at communicating presence? And how good are you at building bridges? Let's look at your recent social media post or your latest TikTok video. And while it was intended to promote faith, did it? Did you come, did you sit long enough with the anxieties and the lens of the people you're trying to reach to understand? Or might your post simply be nothing more than you cutting off people's noses and shoving a rose in their face and wondering, why can't they appreciate the smell of the rose? You do realize for people with postmodern thought, they have seen the age of the cathedral where the church was a source of absolute truth and becoming very tyrannical. They've seen that going down and the age of science, which gave us modernity, coming in and promising that through science we will get to this utopia, and science letting us down. And now the postmoderns have become cynical completely about any absolute claim for truth because they simply realize that any claim to absolute truth ends up with tyranny. When science was the claim to an absolute truth or a bigger picture, They became tyrannical. They made the atomic bomb. They came up with means to kill everybody. When the church was the claim to absolute truth, they ran crusades. They advocated for colonialism. They supported slavery. And so the postmodern thinker is thinking any claim to absolute, when they hear truth, they hear alarm bells going out. And here you are with your well-intended social media post, not keen and clear about the anxieties that are around, and you now begin wondering, why are people not responding? Might we begin picking from Jesus a thing or two? So question number one that Jesus asks is the question he asks to his Father. Both Matthew and Mark, and largely all the four Gospels, agree on one thing, that this question was asked 3 times. And it was the same question, the exact same question. Father, paraphrasing it into modern English, I really don't feel this thing. Okay? If there was another way, if this cup could be taken out, I'd be happy. But if it cannot be taken away, then your will and not my will. Very honest, very, very honest. The God question, the question he asks to God. Let's just unpack that and apply it to you and me and see how it helps us navigate our crossroads. So Jesus has come to the world to die for the world. Okay, his mission was to lay down his life. It's within the bigger picture of what we call restoration. In Gethsemane is when that final decision is being made. It's when, in a very complex term, we call it propitiation, where him who didn't have sin is now finally being made sin, where the sins of the world are literally being transferred to him. And because God cannot be one with sin, the Father has to begin distancing himself from there. So the decision that Christ will follow through. How do I put this? Imagine this Navy SEAL team that went to kill Osama. They've done their training, they've done everything. And then finally now the night comes, the President Obama has given the order, okay, it's a go. Okay. At that point, when they are boarding the helicopters and stuff, it's the last really opportunity for the SEALs for one of the SEALs or the entire SEALs to say, like, you know what, we're not too sure about this, we're backing out. But as they're stepping onto that helicopter for that particular mission, the entire weight of expectation is on them. And you've seen those pictures in the White House where they're all looking, very pensively on that, because the weight of expectation is on them. So kind of just that's a picture. Jesus at Gethsemane is almost like, if you'd like, those Navy SEALs. At that moment, he's stepping into the helicopter, and it's more like, this is it. It's go or no go. It's at this point where he's deciding, I will follow through. I will die for humanity. Okay? And if you know anything about sin, it's ugly. Sin is really ugly. You see that hatred you feel towards a rape or a murder or a injustice, or all of those things. Within the Christian language, we call those the results of sin. So Jesus was going to die not just for the consequences of sin, but for sin itself. So imagine, take all this ugliness and the weight we have felt over this time and try to distill it and place it on one individual. If he can't go through with it, humanity is lost forever. If he goes through with it, there is hope. It's a weighty decision. It's his crossroad. He still had the option of saying, you know what, I ain't to blame. I didn't get people into this problem. I gave them free will. They've made themselves into this particular thing. I'll just go back and chill out in heaven with angels, and if these guys will just take it, it's more than I can bear. He had the right to make that decision, and a lot hung on that particular decision. And so when Christ is praying 3 times and saying, Father, if it is possible, take this cup away from me, yet not my will, but your will. What he's really doing is he's having an honest moment to ask this question: why am I doing this? Really? And he's asking that question 3 times. So in the God question, in that prayer to his Father, what Christ is doing, he's showing us one of the important questions or one of the important dimensions to consider when we reach a crossroad. One of the key questions we need to ask is what I'm saying is a God question. And the God question allows Christ to wrestle with the question of, why am I really doing this? And really, 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 why am I doing this? And that's why he doesn't pray once. He prays 3 times. It allows him to, so I work as a coach, and one of the things you learn in coaching is you question people's answers until you are able to come to what really is at the core. Most people are like a banana or like a flower. What they present on the outside is really not the issue. You know, the spots you see is really not the issue. And through questioning, you're able to peel step by step until you reach the inside. So many of us who feel like they are hard, tough coconuts, you soon realize when you begin working away at it that the coconut exterior is nothing more but an attempt to protect a very soft, white, pulpy interior. So that's why Jesus is asking the question 3 times. And it's the God question allows him to be able to wrestle with this bit for this part in his crossroads situation. Why am I really doing this? Truly and really. In other language, it's called wrestling with the integrity of a decision, wrestling with the integrity and looking at your genuine motives, looking at your genuine motivations, looking at your genuine, yesterday we said not all of us are on an honest quest. So looking at what is really pushing you and really looking at what is driving you in this particular time. So just let me pull back and put it this way. You see, we've said in Crossroads, the stakes are high. That's given because a lot hangs on the decision we're making. And the options do not seem to be very clear. And one of the reasons the options, alternatives do not seem to be very clear is because many times we have not wrestled with the question of integrity, which is, why are we truly doing what we are doing? Hey, just think about you. You saw that guy's payslip. You saw, he's in the 6 figures annually, or you've been looking at that lady's Instagram, and the photos, the unfiltered photos she's been putting, she's a 10 out of 10. And when you finally slide into her DMs or his DMs, you already, because you've seen his mullah, you're imagining you've already projected certain things about your potential future and everything. Or, when you've seen how she looks, she's a 10 out of 10. You've probably made assumptions about how happy you'll be, how people will applaud you, and what the babies would even probably look like. And so when you're in the relationship with them, when you're at the crossroad after dating them for a while, and you begin realizing, this person looks good from far, or that pay looks good from far, but you're being with them, they're really far from good. Why you begin saying, hey, I'm at a crossroad of, should I leave them? Should I not? At times has to do with answering that question for, why am I truly here? Is it the booty keeping me here? Is it the money and the career that is really keeping me here? And answering the God question, the why am I here question, the purpose question, the integrity question, allows you to wrestle with the hardcore facts of what is driving me in this decision. So Jesus, in asking the Father, he recognizes, A, this is a cup. B, somebody must drink it. C, I came to drink it. But Jesus is honest. He says how I feel. He does not minimize his feelings. He does not spiritualize his feelings. He does not excuse his feelings. He does not hide his feelings. He admits they exist. And he brings them to the Father and says, I don't feel like it. But the integrity question pushes him beyond feelings and makes him question, like, why am I doing what I am doing really? When we fail to answer the integrity question, we begin selling ourselves a narrative. That's the reason you've bought an additional pair of Air Jordans and you want to tell me a story about why they're good for snow. It's a reason why you've upgraded to a $40,000 car and you're telling me, it's saving me on gas. No, you just really wanted a better looking car. The integrity question allows you to stop selling yourself a story. It allows you to stop deceiving yourself. It allows you to wrestle with that hardcore question, why am I doing this really? And notice, when Jesus is done with wrestling with his integrity question, he is very clear about why he is here. He's very clear about where he needs to go next. He has a certain sense of security. And this is the effect. This is the end result of us dealing with the integrity question. It allows us, if properly addressed, it allows us to begin operating from a locus of security rather than a locus of insecurity. Let me explain myself here a bit more clearly with a few examples. The reason Jesus is able to engage a mob that has come to arrest him with such calmness, when later in the week we will read the story in John, when Jesus is being arrested, he says, I am he, and something happens and the people fall back. Like he still has that power for him when he says, I am he, and people fall back. Yet, even with such power, because Christ has already addressed the integrity question, he's able to give up his hands and to be arrested. He is able to engage in that whole interaction from a point of security rather than insecurity. A lot of us go out there. Let me begin with parents, then the young people. An example for each would help. A lot of us are engaging out here in life from a position of insecurity. We may not realize it, but it's really from a position of insecurity. Mom and dad, at times when you're yelling at your kids, I know it is from genuine concern for them, but if you honestly allow the Holy Spirit to interrogate with you, you begin realizing, your children and how they turn out has become an idol in your life. You've been able to summarize somehow over the years that if my children don't turn out well, I am a failure. I have failed as a parent. And so, which is untrue. That's not God's way of measuring success. But anyway, you've sold yourself that narrative. And because you're either A, not sincere to yourself that that's a narrative you're operating in, or B, you're not just aware that that's a narrative you're operating within, you're here busy driving your children towards certain careers or certain behaviors or certain marriages or certain networks or certain things, okay? And you begin wondering and you begin, using because you are insecure in the fact that if they turn out badly, it will look bad on you, because that's a position of insecurity you're operating within. It shows up in everything you do. You threaten, you cajole, you nag, you even bribe. How many parents have read to their children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. I'm in the Lord, honor your father and mother, that you may live long in the land I'm going to give you. And we stop there and not read, and parents, do not provoke your children. How many parents have used, or misuse the scriptures this way, when really what they're doing is they are forcing the children to grow up in a way that pleases the parents, because the parents have equated and said, if my child turns out well, then I'm a success. If my child does not turn out well, then I am not a success. Let me remind you for a minute here. Samuel was a successful prophet with very unsuccessful children. Jesus was a masterful teacher for 3 years, But when you look at the 12 individuals, one committed suicide. On the day of his arrest, 11 of them ran away and forsook him. If we measured success the way we think as human beings, Jesus was a miserable teacher. His students performed extremely dismally. One of them, while Jesus is still being interrogated, one of them is busy cursing and swearing and denying him. So the way we measure success may not be the way God looks at success. But because as parents, we are operating from a position of insecurity, because we have not addressed the question of, why am I truly doing this? Why am I moving my children across the Atlantic into America and putting them in this school district? Why am I working these 4-3 shifts to be able to make this money to build a house in the village? Why am I truly doing this? Because we've not wrestled with that question, many of us are operating from a position of insecurity as parents. Hey, young people, because many of us have an insecurity of our identity, we've based our identity on either performance or appearance. We have a shaky base and we're very insecure. If therefore today my performance, whether it's academic or athletic or financial, or even some mundane things like how my photo performs on Instagram changes, because I'm insecure, my ultimate source of insecurities begin showing up. And it is often because we have not, as young people, answered the question, why am I really doing this course in IT? Why am I really adding these filters to my photo? Why am I really recording this TikTok? Why am I truly doing this? Why am I genuinely doing this? And coming to peace with the uncomfortable, naked reality that is within. And so as an end result, what we do as young people, we begin selling ourselves a narrative like, no, I need to have an IG account. My TikTok needs to be this because, it's a thing everyone is doing. No, really, what you're really doing is you're keeping on going there to feed an insecure sense of your identity. At times, sorry for breaking it that way, but, just say it with deep compassion and genuine love. And Jesus, in this entire episode, the reason the crowd comes as a crowd and not as an individual is because they are a group of, Jesus even calls them out. He tells them like, hey guys, I'm not a thief. Why are you coming to me with swords and sticks? But it is because they are operating from a position of insecurity. Therefore, they need all this weaponry to try and cover up for the insecurity. The reason the disciples run away is because their insecurity is exposed by the events that happen that way. The reason Judas uses tools of friendship to be able to advance his betrayal, he uses a kiss, an instrument of friendship, an instrument of trust. He uses it to be able to advance his own personal agenda, is because Judas has equally not wrestled with the question of integrity. Why am I truly doing what I am doing? And the end result is he's operating from a position of insecurity and misusing people and things all over the place. And I ask in love again, as a church, as children, as young people, as parents, as society, have we wrestled with the question of why am I truly doing what I am doing? Have we come to the core? And have we been able to address that question so much so that we are able to operate from a position of security rather than insecurity? Jesus was able to do this, and so can you. He ensured that his external talk and his internal commitment were aligned. For Jesus to be able to live his life properly and to navigate this point, he wrestled with the question of integrity. And as a net result, he was able to allow that his external talk and his internal life and commitment were completely aligned. Are you as the same? The disciples promised to be with Jesus. They slept. The crowds had initially come to listen to Jesus in the time past, but now they came to arrest him. Judas had been trusted even with the money, but now he comes as a betrayer. Why? Because their failure to address the question of integrity meant there was a lack of congruence between their external life and their internal commitment. How will we navigate our crossroads? Generally, it's by questions. Questions that communicate coming alongside people, and questions that allow us to build bridges between our anxieties and God's answers. What's the first question that God asks us to ask ourselves today? It's a question to God or from God, and which is, why am I really doing this? Really? And when that question is properly answered, it allows us to function from a position of security, and then we are able to securely engage our crossroads, and we are able to securely engage other people. So let me ask the church, let me ask each individual here, have we wrestled with the question of integrity, or are we busy selling ourselves a story? But the sad thing is this: the stories we sell to ourselves do not lead to a position of stability and security. Only coming to the truth allows us to begin functioning from a position of security. Heavenly Father, even tonight, begin or continue wrestling with us to answer and address the question of our true inner motives, to answer why we are truly doing what we are, to remind us of our calling. And loving Father, may we come eventually to that solid rock, which reminds us how our being on the earth is connected to your agenda and why we can depend on you. And from that position of stability, like Christ did, in spite of how the emotions may have felt, help us then engage life and others from a position of security and stability, and not from a position of insecurity and instability. Save us from the lies we sell to ourselves, from the stories we tell ourselves, from the excuses we've put together so that we can tell ourselves and calm ourselves and pacify ourselves. But instead, loving Father, help us confront. And some of the things we may need to listen to may be deeply ugly, may be very uncomfortable. But Lord, please remind us that whatever it is that you peel open, you're able to then stabilize and show us a better and more functional way to operate. And Lord, in other spaces, you're calling us to come alongside individuals navigating crossroads, and where you need us to come alongside them and to also help them build bridges to the tools that are in Christ. Help us listen, help us ask the right questions, and help us be present. I praise you and I thank you.